On New Year's Eve in Baltimore, the city is alive with parties and celebrations. The mood shifts to terror when a sniper begins firing into the crowds. Shooting from a distance, he kills anyone in sight without warning. That night, the city became the hunting ground of a ghost. This is To Catch a Killer. Meanwhile, Eleanor Falco, a young police officer, is handling a dispute between a cafe owner and a drunk customer. Suddenly, she receives an urgent call ordering all units to respond to a mass shooting at a nearby plaza. She rushes to the scene without hesitation. There, she learns the sniper has killed 29 people, ranging from the young to the elderly. The victims were chosen at random. Investigators trace the shots to an apartment on the 17th floor of a nearby building. As officers prepare to storm the apartment, the building suddenly explodes. Chaos erupts as residents flee in panic. Eleanor quickly records video evidence in case the sniper tries to slip away with the crowd. Rescue teams enter the smoke-filled building and discover the apartment is empty. No bodies are found. The air becomes suffocating, and Eleanor nearly collapses before Detective Mackenzie helps her with an oxygen mask.
That's it. You okay?
Soon after, FBI lead investigator Jeffrey Landmark arrives. His team reports that the apartment belongs to a Norwegian man currently in Oslo. He had received the property as repayment for a debt and had been trying to sell it. Back at police headquarters, Landmark briefs the team. He recommends closing all highways to prevent the shooter from escaping, but Deputy Governor Capleton rejects the plan, worried about public panic and damage to the governor's reputation. Later, Eleanor and her colleagues discuss the shooter's motives. Landmark, impressed by her sharp observations, asked for her thoughts. She explained that the killer was driven by a deep personal urge, which explained why he kept killing instead of stopping after the first victims. When asked why the attacks had paused, she suggested his need had been satisfied for the night, but warned that he would strike again soon. Landmark was struck by the clarity of her analysis. The following morning, Eleanor received a call from her boss informing her that Landmark wanted to meet right away. She went to a cafe and found him in a heated argument with Capleton, who continued to dismiss any preventive action. After Capleton stormed out, Eleanor sat down with Landmark, and he told her he wanted her to join the FBI team. Eleanor is caught off guard. Landmark explains that it is not only her sharp analysis that interests him, but also the way her thinking appears chaotic, much like the killer's. Detective Mackenzie then joins them, and Landmark says the three of them will work together as a team. Their first stop is the morgue, where they view the 29 victims. The precision of the attacks convinces them that the shooter has professional training, likely military, since no ordinary person could kill so many with such accuracy. Landmark also points out that the victims include people of different races, ages, and genders, showing no clear pattern. While they are still there, an officer arrives with new information. Police have located a suspect. The team rushes to the site, where SWAT has surrounded a building. FBI agent Frank briefs them, saying the suspect is a teenager who lived directly above the apartment that exploded. When police questioned him, he locked himself inside and threatened to kill everyone. Frank insists the teenager fits the profile. He has ADHD, skips school due to bullying, spends his time watching ISIS propaganda videos, and is obsessed with violent games. His uncle once took him to a shooting range. Even so, Landmark is not convinced he is the true shooter. Eleanor raises a critical question. She reminds them that a mattress was found in the destroyed apartment, and asks why it would be there if the boy lived upstairs. Frank dismisses her concern and pushes SWAT to act. They break into the apartment and confront the teenager. Panicked, he leaps out of the window and falls to his death.
Get down on the floor! Now! Where's your weapon?
Get like that!
Afterward, police confirmed there were no weapons with him, proving their suspicion was misplaced. Frustrated, Landmark decides to investigate the painters who had access to the apartment 2 years earlier. Soon, 3 painters named Rodney, Haynes, and Dimitri are brought in for questioning. Landmark asks about their whereabouts on New Year's Eve, and although each provides a solid alibi, the tension is clear. Rodney remains calm, but Haynes and Dimitri grow angry, insisting it is absurd to accuse them of murder over a job they had done years earlier. A few days later, inside a busy mall, an old man tried on clothes. When he stepped out to pick another outfit, someone slipped into his changing room and stole his belongings. Not long after, a stranger was spotted in the restroom, washing himself with the stolen clothes in hand. Another shopper noticed the man and reported him to security. Guards rushed to the restroom, but the thief was already gone. They caught him in the cafeteria, where he was trying to take leftover food. When the guards demanded to check his bag, he refused. Suddenly, he pulled out a gun and opened fire on everyone nearby. At that time, Eleanor was at a gun shop questioning the owner about the weapons used in the earlier attacks. Her interview was interrupted by a call reporting the mall shooting. She rushed to the scene and was devastated to find both civilians and officers among the dead. In the security room, Eleanor joined Landmark and Mackenzie to review CCTV footage. The shooter appeared thin, white, and over 6 feet tall, but his face remained hidden under a hoodie. They traced his original clothes before he entered the restroom and decided to collect them for DNA testing. Eleanor studied the footage carefully. She pointed out that the man had first sought food, clothing, and a chance to clean himself, not to kill. They also noticed he ate only vegetables, which meant he was vegetarian. Landmark added that his precision was far beyond normal training, suggesting he had grown up among sharpshooters. The footage then showed him planting grenades inside trash bins, killing multiple officers at once. When police searched the restroom, the stolen clothes were already gone, taken away by garbage trucks. Holding on to this lead, Mackenzie and Eleanor went to the dump and searched through piles of trash. At the same time, Landmark faced growing pressure from his superiors and from Capleton, who was more concerned about the governor's reputation than the investigation. Eventually, Mackenzie and Eleanor returned with the shooter's discarded clothes, giving the team a small but important breakthrough. Soon after, a news anchor broadcast footage of the mall attack and urged viewers to contact authorities with any information. Eleanor continued her investigation into the 3 painters. While reviewing Rodney's bank records, she discovered he was juggling several jobs at once. At the same time, the lab reported that the shooter's shirt contained fragile hair, a type usually found in people who had suffered serious head injuries. Not long after, television lines lit up with live calls from viewers. One caller, speaking in a strange and taunting tone, declared pride in the sniper's actions and claimed to be part of a group called the Invisible Army, fighting against what he described as a corrupt system. When pressed by the presenter, the caller threatened to kill him and even mentioned targeting his daughter in her college dorm.
Half the crimes in this country never get solved. Taking our jobs, taking our land, taking our women. Wow.
Fucking
If our
sick.
so-called leaders won't speak up for us,
The man seemed to know specific details about the shooter. FBI agents traced the call and quickly sent SWAT to intercept him. They discovered he was active in a gun rights group, the NRA, and was openly hostile toward the government, liberals, and Jews. Investigators identified him, tracked his car, and followed his movements. Still, Landmark and Eleanor had doubts. They believed the Real sniper was a loner with no ideology or group connections. Despite this, they were ordered to proceed by their superiors and the governor. Before long, the caller and his associates parked their truck and entered a store, laughing and boasting about frightening the news presenter and the police. Eleanor and Mackenzie went undercover and followed them inside. Eleanor quietly warned civilians nearby, urging them to leave. Tension rose when an elderly man asked her to repeat herself, drawing the attention of one of the thugs. He grew suspicious and watched her closely. At that moment, additional officers stormed in and aimed their weapons at the suspects. A violent shootout erupted. One survivor pulled out a weapon, but was subdued with a stun gun. In a startling twist, when the man was finally arrested, he admitted it had all been a prank. There was no invisible army. The next day, Landmark faced a disciplinary committee. They accused him of incompetence and claimed his poor leadership had caused unnecessary deaths. Landmark explained that many of the decisions had been forced on him, but the officials insisted he was accountable because he was in charge. They also attacked his decision to recruit Eleanor, pointing out that she had once been rejected by the FBI and carried a history of addiction. Landmark defended her firmly, but it was clear the committee was only looking for someone to take the blame. In the end, the meeting concluded with both Landmark and Eleanor removed from their roles and forced off the investigation. Back at home, the pressure overwhelmed Eleanor, leading to a complete breakdown. Later that night, she regained her focus and rushed out to confront Rodney. She questioned him about holding multiple jobs and suggested that he had outsourced some of the work to others, one of whom might be the killer. Rodney denied it at first. When his wife angrily demanded the truth, he finally confessed. Eleanor immediately called Landmark to join them. Rodney admitted that he often hired immigrants, ex-convicts, and men who struggled to find regular jobs. He paid them low wages, but he brought them lunch every day. Among them was a man named Dean. He was vegan and refused to eat meat or dairy. When asked why, Dean explained that he had once worked in a slaughterhouse and gave up meat after what he had seen there. Nervously, Rodney admitted that Dean's height and build matched the sniper from the mall. With this information, Eleanor and Landmark brought in a sketch artist. Using Rodney's description, they created a portrait of Dean. Since the city had only 3 slaughterhouses, the team decided to visit each one. At the first 2 sites, no one recognized the sketch. At the third, an elderly woman immediately identified him as Dean Posi. She described him as quiet and hardworking, someone who never caused trouble. But others told a darker story. A supervisor named Alonso constantly mocked Dean, often ridiculing the shape of his head. During one shift in the hamburger section, Alonso died in a horrific accident. Dean claimed Alonso had fallen into a meat grinder by mistake, but most believed it was murder. Dean was convicted and sent to prison, but he was released after only 2 years. Eleanor later reviewed his file and learned more. His father had been a soldier and a shooting instructor. Dean's parole had been supported by letters from 2 of his father's military friends. She also discovered that Dean had been shot in the head as a child. Though he survived, the injury left him with permanent brain trauma. Records showed he had no credit cards, no home address, and no social security number, making him nearly invisible. Not long after, they arrived at Dean's mother's house. Eleanor suggested calling Mackenzie for backup, but Landmark refused, warning that involving him would bring the entire FBI down on the place and destroy any chance of a quiet capture. At that moment, Dean's mother, Mrs. Posi, returned home. The agents questioned her about her son. She seemed aware of what he had done but refused to help, fearing they would kill him. Landmark reassured her that they only wanted to take him alive. Reluctantly, she let them inside. Mrs. Posi explained that the last time she had seen Dean was during the pandemic. She recalled that he had once been a happy and intelligent child. Everything changed when, at 6 years old, his father accidentally shot him in the head. Dean survived, but the injury left him permanently altered. As he grew older, Dean became withdrawn and angry at the world. His father trained him for military service, but he was rejected, considered not tough enough at the time. While listening, Eleanor glanced out the window. She noticed 2 teacups on the table outside, a man's shirt drying on a line, and a shed in the distance. She tried to alert Landmark, but before she could act, it was too late. A shot rang out. Dean fired from the shed, killing Landmark instantly. Mrs. Posi ordered Eleanor not to move or she would be next. She reminded Eleanor of her promise to keep Dean alive and asked how she planned to honor it. Shaken, Eleanor handed Mrs. Posi her phone and gun, pleading with her to convince Dean to surrender. Mrs. Posi stepped outside and begged her son to stop the violence and turn himself in. She told him Eleanor could help and that his medical history might protect him from prison. Dean remained silent. Frustration overcame his mother. In despair, she took her own life in front of him.
She's here to help! You'd be going to Dalloway. It's a facility in the woods. You must surrender. Come with me.
Shocked, Dean stepped out of the shed with his weapon and walked toward the house. He told Eleanor his rage was not personal. His hatred was directed at modern society itself. Eleanor stayed calm and told him she understood because she had once felt the same way. Their tense conversation stretched on until Dean slowly began to trust her. He told Eleanor he wanted to lie beside his mother and asked her to shoot him once he had fallen asleep. He begged her to burn his body so it would never appear on the news. Eleanor agreed, but before anything else could happen, a police car pulled up outside. The flashing lights startled Dean, and convinced she had betrayed him, he struck her with his rifle and dragged her into the basement, tying her up. Moments later, an officer outside ordered Mrs. Posi to open the door. Dean responded by shooting her on the spot. When another officer called for backup, he was gunned down as well. Within minutes, more police surrounded the house while Eleanor pleaded with Dean to stop the killing. She begged him to untie her, promising she would deal with the police and help him escape alive. Outside, the officers grew restless and prepared to fire, but before they could act, a bomb suddenly exploded.
4!
Amid the chaos, Eleanor lunged forward and bit Dean's neck. Bleeding heavily, he did not fight back. Instead, he grabbed his rifle and staggered outside. Moments later, Eleanor freed herself from her restraints and crawled out of the basement. She found Mackenzie and told him urgently that Dean was injured but still alive. At the same time, Dean fled across an open field behind the house. Police cars flooded the area until they spotted him lying on the ground, his neck still bleeding. As Dean slowly lifted his rifle one final time, the officers opened fire and killed him. In the aftermath, Eleanor met with her superiors and Capleton. They insisted the entire operation remain classified, so the credit would go to the FBI and the governor. To secure her silence, they offered her a position as an FBI intelligence analyst. Eleanor refused. She demanded that Landmark be awarded the Medal of Valor posthumously, and that his pension be given to his partner. She also requested to serve as a special agent rather than an analyst. The officials eventually agreed. The film ends with the leadership heading to a press conference, while Eleanor walks home alone, shaken and haunted by Landmark's death. So the moral of the story is, never trust a hungry guy in a hoodie.